Thanks for listening to the Swearing In podcast, where you'll hear the origin stories of those who chose to serve. So ground your gear, take a seat, and listen up. The Swearing In podcast starts right now.
Hello and welcome to the Swearing In podcast. I'm your host, Marty Smith. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Army Sergeant First Class Retired Krendra Harralson. Krendra grew up in Tacoma, Washington and attended Lincoln High School. As a sophomore, she joined the school's JROTC program. During her junior year, she signed a contract with the Washington National Guard at 17 and attended Army basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, during the summer before her senior year in high school. After graduating in 1998, she completed her AIT at Fort Sam Houston, Texas, as a 92 Bravo medic. Her first assignment was with the Washington National Guard Aviation Unit as a Traditional Guardsman until August 2000. Then, she enlisted in the active duty Army and was assigned to Wiesbaden, Germany, with the 557th Ground Ambulance Company in 2003. Her next assignment was to the 4th Engineer Battalion at Fort Carson, Colorado. In 2009, her unit was deployed to Taji, Iraq. During that deployment, her unit was relocated to Kandahar, Afghanistan, where she was battlefield promoted to Staff Sergeant in 2010. A year later, Staff Sergeant Harralson was assigned to the 555th Engineer Brigade at Fort Lewis, Washington. Her last assignment was to Fort Sam Houston, Texas in 2016, and she retired in 2018. After retiring, Krendra competed in the Miss Veteran America through the nonprofit Final Salute Incorporated. Later, she received the appointed title of Mrs. Texas 2024 and will be competing for Mrs. USA at Omaha, Nebraska in August 2024. Now, this concludes your pre-brief, so let's get on with the interview. Today, I'm joined by Army Sergeant First Class Retired Krendra Harralson. Krendra, thanks for coming on. We've already done 20 minutes of this thing, and my my equipment malfunctioned, so we're redoing the 20 minutes of it. Krendra, you grew up in Washington, right?
I did, Tacoma, Washington.
Tacoma, Washington, and as we spoke, you were a track star, you were soccer, and what was the third one you played?
Basketball.
Basketball. Do you still follow it? Did you watch the
I
national
do.
championship at all?
I do. I didn't watch this year. I was out. I had a couple events, so I didn't see this year's final game. So that sucks.
No, I didn't either. I think I saw the semifinals. The LSU Iowa rematch. You gotta watch that one, right?
Yes.
But let's see. So you got involved in high school. Well, first off, tell me about your grandfather.
So my my mom is one of 9 kids, and I was one of the grandchildren that was very close to my grandpa. And my grandpa was retired Army, and he was also our family pastor. So we had a family.
Oh, wow.
church.
No kidding.
And
You didn't tell me that.
No, I didn't. But we used to go to church on Sunday, and he would drive me and my older brother to church with him. But he was a retired Army artilleryman, and he and I used to watch MASH together. He had in pristine condition, and in all its plastic, he had all of his uniforms pressed and starched. But
Really?
among those items was his drill sergeant hat, and I felt like I just had to have one of those.
The old Smokey Bear hat, right?
That's right. That's right.
Man.
Grandpa, what is this?
Yeah.
And so he would talk to me. That was back when he was a drill sergeant when they still had basic training at North Fort Lewis.
Oh yeah, that's right. Huh. I was in RLTC too. I went to camp at Fort Lewis.
Yep.
That was 88. So that was back in 88. So I got to experience those barracks on stilts as well. So
yes.
What was your grandfather's name so we can give him credit?
Leslie Robinson Sr.
And he got out as what?
He was a retired sergeant first class.
Oh, look at that. Just following in grandfather's footsteps.
Yes.
So, with his influence, is that why you joined the JROTC?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
wait, I didn't give you a chance to say your mighty high school.
I went to the mighty Lincoln Magnet High School of Tacoma, Washington. Go Aves.
Somebody will be happy that you said that.
Right?
So you joined the JRTC there.
Yep.
What year? You're freshman, sophomore year?
Yep, all from sophomore to senior year. So even after I came back from basic training, I was still in JROTC. And Sergeant First Class retired Alfred Harmon was my Army instructor, and he was absolutely amazing.
There are so few schools that have JROTC anymore.
Right.
You know, I mean, you're lucky. I wish we would have had one. We were too small to have it, but I don't know how many do. It'd be interesting. Maybe I'll look that up. So. Now you got, even though you're in JROTC, how did you reach out to the National Guard unit that's there in order for you to go, hey, I want to go to basic?
So we have, each school has assigned recruiters for all of the branches. And our National Guard recruiters were awesome. Darlene, Mitchell, and Sergeant First Class Thornton. That's who my recruiters were at the time.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
I made a connection with them as a freshman. And when it finally was time to get serious about being a split op, it was pretty awesome. So the end of my sophomore year, I was like, you guys know I'm doing this next year.
Wow.
And they were at the school pretty regularly. And whenever they were there, I was one of the first ones to stop by their table, or when they came to the classroom to sit and chat with them. But they knew my plan.
That's an amazing focus that you had back then. That's crazy.
I know. I wish I still had it.
I had no focus. I mean, I really tip my hat to you. So you go in, and then they throw up a contract to you, right? And they say, hey, if you go to basic, why go to basic between your junior and senior year instead of just wait for you to finish your senior year? Oh, can you hear me? Kendra, did I lose you?
Okay, there you go.
Oh, okay. So we just had a break there.
I just missed the question.
Oh, I was saying, why go to basic in between your junior and senior year rather than just wait for your senior year?
Because I was going to be ready to go by the time I was, when I graduated.
That was your choice, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. My parents were just there to support and help me complete the mission.
So, and you're going to go, so you signed a contract, that said you're going to go as a 17-year-old, get your parents' signatures, right?
Right.
And they ship you off to Fort Jackson, South Carolina for the summer of your junior year.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Can you run down that timeline real quick? I know you said it before, but I thought that was important. When school ended? I
turned 17 in April, and I was at basic training, taking the initial basic training photos by June. Or by June, I think June 10th is the date on my photos, my basic training photos. So from April, I turned 17, and by June that year, I was going on my way to basic training.
So you swore in. Did you have to go to a MEPS?
I did. I went to MEPS. I did the whole standard, same thing everybody else does.
Yeah. Sworn in the civilian clothes, and you're just like,
Yep. And then I was back at school by September.
Wow. So now that you're out of, so you're finished with basic. This is 97. You're starting your senior year. And now you're doing your senior year and all your sports and drilling with that National Guard unit, right?
Correct.
Holy, that's amazing. You're not working at McDonald's or nothing. You got too much to do. Jeez, that's crazy. How'd you do? Recount for me how you did state-wise. You said your 4x100 team went to state, which you were part of in your
When
junior
I was
year.
in 11th grade, yes, my 4x1 relay team went to state. I ran the 300 intermediate hurdles and the 200. But my senior year, I was the only one from the male and female team to go to state, and I was running the 300 intermediate hurdles and the 200.
What a throw-up race! I mean, my God, it's just not short enough to be a sprint, and it's just God, that's incredible. That's incredible. And you went to state. How'd you do at state?
At state, I placed 5th or 6th.
And you said you were also chosen to offered a position to go run in China.
In China,
right?
I did. Yep.
As
But
part of what was that? A certain like type of games or something?
they pick. I think it was between 15 and 20 students.
Yeah, things are conspiring against us. I don't know. Okay, welcome back. Had a little internet glitch there, but you were. I asked a question about you got to go run in China, or you got selected to go run in China.
I got in, yes. So I was invited to run in China, which was a huge honor. But at the time, my parents were not able to afford something like
That's
that.
what they always do, right? Yeah.
Right.
You can go run clear across the world. You're that good, but you got to pay for it. Like,
right.
Come on. So you're doing, I can't believe you're doing drill weekends during your senior year in high school. That blows me away. You get to graduation in this 98, right? And now you're just a National Guardsman?
Yes. So I go.
Oh, wait. I jumped over. When did you complete your AIT?
I went to AIT. I left for AIT June of 98, and I graduated mid-September of 98 from Fort Sam Houston.
And is it 68 Delta or
68 Whiskey? Back then it was 92 Bravo.
Oh, it was 92 Bravo.
It was 92 Bravo.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So medic. And now you're doing drill with the National Guard unit, which what you said was an aviation battalion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chinook helicopters. So you're
Chinook
doing
helicopters,
flight physicals. After I got out of the Army, I got in the Air Force for the second half of my career, and I was in space, and we had to get flight physicals all the time.
Okay.
And if you took the wrong medication, if you got sick and didn't see him, they had to sign you back on the flight status.
That's right. You got a down slip.
I hated all those people because they were hard to get a hold of, and you're just like, I can't work until they sign off on me. So,
yeah.
What are you doing? So you're doing that a traditional guardsman. So you're doing it 1 week in a month. You're doing your couple of weeks a year. How long were you a traditional guardsman for?
I was a traditional guardsman until roughly August of 2000, when I went IRR. And after being IRR, I was like, I want to go do the big thing. Like, this was not enough. And so I re-enlisted to go active duty.
Is that why you let that contract expire, because you were planning on going enlisted? I mean, active duty.
Active duty. Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So you go back into the recruiter?
Mm-hmm. I did. I did.
And are like, hey, I'm a fully qualified medic with all of my badges and everything else. What were you an E4 by this time?
I was still. Yep, I was an E4.
Okay. And they said, yeah, we'll take you. So you sign a 4-year contract. Well, this is 2000, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what'd you sign? A 6-year contract?
I signed a 4-year contract.
Okay. What were you doing you were a guardsman, but during those couple of years, were you just working and then going to drill on
and going to school? Yep.
You were going to.
I worked all kinds of crazy jobs. I worked as a nursing assistant. I sold cars. Yeah.
That sounds like a desperation move at that point. So it's
Yeah, I worked at the recruiting station. I got put on orders and worked at the recruiting
Oh,
station for
okay.
18 months. And at that
Oh,
point,
that's not so
I,
bad. Yeah.
yeah, at that point, I was like, no, I think I want to do this full time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then, yeah, you didn't have to really stitch a bunch of different jobs together when they got you on orders for a
Right.
year and a half. So, okay. And he says, yeah, we'll take you. We're going to send you to where?
My first duty station was Germany. Before I got to Germany, they
Oh,
sent me to South Carolina to re-in-process into the military. And so
okay.
I was
Okay.
there for about 3 weeks before I got to Wiesbaden, Germany, where I was stationed from 2003 to 2007.
Did you get a cuckoo clock?
No,
You didn't get a
I
cuckoo clock?
didn't buy a cuckoo clock, but I did
Oh.
have a shrunk for a long time.
You had to be blown away, right? I mean,
Yes.
Germany, golly.
Yes.
Um, so, and that's such a pain in the ass to get transported over there. But once you're there, now you're stepping foot, E4 medic. What unit did you go to?
I went to the 557 Ground Ambulance Company, part of the 421st Medevac Battalion.
Whoa. So, God, Wiesbaden. Holy cow.
It was amazing. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. So what were your duties though? What were your duties when you got there?
I was assigned to first platoon, and we were first platoon handled. We were supposed to, when I first got there, we were on our way to Turkey. But when they turned us away from using that port, then my unit's orders were dropped. And so I was a standard aid and ambulance driver.
Okay.
And when the Rangers or Special Forces would come and do jumps, then we
Yeah.
would do flight zone coverage. We covered ranges. If there, whatever task there was, then we covered it medically. And then on top of keeping our ambulances clean
Sure.
and pristine.
And doing your dash 10s and everything else
Yeah.
on those things.
Yes. Yes.
You know, the one thing I always admire about the medics and some of the other support functions that get sliced off to the maneuver units is that when you guys do that, you're still doing your job. Even though they're doing exercise, you're still doing your job. Now you'll do. Correct me if I'm wrong. You might do a mass casualty exercise or something like that, but you're there for real life stuff, even though they're on an exercise.
Right.
So you're always doing your job.
So we're always there for the play too. But like you said, if there's a casualty, then it's
Yeah.
work time.
Everything's real world when
Yeah.
somebody's bleeding, right? It doesn't
Right.
matter why they're bleeding. So you get there in 2000?
I get there in 2003. So it
Oh,
took
sorry,
me
2003.
a little while. So from 2000 to 2000, I enlisted in 2002. I had to have a waiver, and that's why it took so long. And so in 2002,
Oh,
I went to
wow.
South Carolina to in process, and from there I went to Wiesbaden, Germany, where, and by then it was like March of 2003.
Okay. So where were you for 9/11? Were
For
you
nine,
in?
I was a National Guardsman.
Oh, you were. Okay. Did you
I
guys
was
get?
IRR.
Oh, you were. Did that drive you
Mhm.
crazy?
So I actually had had a sad moment. I had just had a miscarriage, so I was actually
Oh,
home
sorry.
laying on the
Sorry to hear that.
couch, and
Just can't
I
believe
was
what you're seeing. You gotta be
yes.
like, oh my God.
One of my friends called and he was like, "What are you doing right now?" And I was like, "I just woke up. What's supposed to be happening?" And he's like, "Are you not watching the news?" And I was like, I am in like 10 seconds." And he was like, "You got to turn it on and call me back."
Right.
And I do, and I was blown away. And at that point, I was like, what can I do? How can I help?
Yeah.
How can I be of service? And that's what triggered the, this is
Okay.
it's time to be a big kid.
Time to go back in, or time to really do it. I got the same call from my sister. She's like, "Wake up, turn the news on." I wonder how many of those calls, right? Millions of calls.
Right.
Like, wake up and look at the news. All right, so you're there. I'm sorry, I screwed up your timeline. So you stepped foot in Wiesbaden in 2003.
Yep, March of 2003.
Oh man, that's the Iraq. I mean, the Iraq. That's the famous, the
Yep.
famous
Invasion.
pageant person who said that,
Yeah.
right? Things like the Iraq, I was like, I just said it, and I just said it. Funny because we're going to go into pageants here pretty soon.
Right.
So, did you receive any? Were you? How was it being in Wiesbaden, Germany? We just transitioned from Afghanistan going into Iraq, right?
hmm
And no, I'm sorry, 2003. So we were just.
It was invasion time in
Yeah,
Iraq.
that's right. That's right. So, were you guys utilized for receiving anybody coming back from that, or was that somebody else?
No, not in Wiesbaden.
Okay.
Wiesbaden, we just had a small clinic down there, and it was run by clinic. They had a unit. We were just our own ground ambulance. What we did was we were supposed to go into Turkey, and when they turned us away, then we no longer had a mission. And so
Oh,
we
really?
just we kind of sat it out. We were still doing rotations in Kosovo.
Oh my goodness, really?
Right.
Now, surprisingly, Kosovo's bubbling up again.
Right.
Did they ever send you to Grafenwehr or anything like that?
After a couple years, maybe, let me see, how long was it? After about 18 months of being stationed in Wiesbaden, I moved over to headquarters and headquarters element, and I was the battalion commander, secretary, and driver for about a year. And then I went on to become a flight medic within the organization. So I OJT'd into being a flight medic, and we would go on rotation down in Graf and Hohenfelds.
Is that a different MOS?
No. Oh, yes. So, I mean, it's they are now considered 68 whiskey papas.
Oh wow! So that's a shred out, huh? Well, somewhere in there, you got to be approaching NCO if you're not an NCO.
I was an E5 by the time I became a flight medic.
Where'd you get promoted at?
I was promoted right there at Wiesbaden. In Wiesbaden, I went to PLDC in Graf.
That's right, PLDC. Forgot all about that. Yeah. And they had it at Graf.
I remember doing day and night land nav, and they had wild boars out there, and I smelled.
Oh, that's right. There's no joke, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like those things are big. Bigger than I ever thought. I mean, they're bigger than the boars that run around down the south. So, well, how long did you stay in Germany then with that new assignment? You're at headquarters element, right?
I stayed in Germany until August of 2007, and then
were you psyched to be a flight medic though?
I thought it was the coolest thing, but again, my size and weight got me into trouble. Because the helmets, my head was so tiny that the smallest helmet was still too big. And
are you talking about like the flight helmets? Oh, yes. Really?
And then whenever we would put the night vision goggles on there, the NVGs, my helmet would slide down in the front. So I ended up holding my goggles up to my eyes, because if not, they were down by my mouth. And they would put the weight bags back there, but it wasn't doing much. So
now it's just getting heavier and heavier, and you're like, it's not fixing it.
Nothing. And then I was so small that the ABDUs, the flight BDUs, were the extra small short was ridiculously big. And so I ended up having to wear the aviator, the one-piece flight suit in order to fly. Right.
That's not a bad deal, right? Right. Like, look at me. Unlucky me. That's a great uniform, boy.
It was very comfy.
Yeah. It takes nothing to get it ready in the morning. So
like PJs.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. You said, so your time is up in 2007?
So I re-enlisted.
In Wiesbaden.
Yep, I re-enlisted in 2005 for another 4 years.
Okay.
And so then in 2007, I had my firstborn, and it was time to thank you. It was time to PCS back to the States. 21st TSC was on the move. They were clearing out people that had been there for far too long. And so I was at the tail end of that.
Oh, okay. All right. What did you do anything special for your reenlistment?
No.
Ah,
I
okay.
did my reenlistment in front of by then, the helicopters that we had as a flight medic
Oh,
were
that's nice. Yeah.
UHC alphas, UH60 alphas, and the Blackhawks. And so I just did it in front of the birds in
Yeah.
the hangar. That's it.
That, that's crazy in your short career so far.
Mm.
You've been on the Chinooks and
Mm-hmm.
now you've been on the Blackhawks, right?
Right.
And so where are they sending you next? Where's your next assignment?
Oh boy. My
Huh.
next assignment, I went to Fort Carson, and I
Man.
was stationed with the combat engineers.
Oh,
I was,
really?
yes, I was the senior medic of the 4th Engineers, 62nd Engineer Sapper Company.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of field time.
It was. That is a true story. That is a true story.
Well, how long did it take you to get used to Colorado's altitude and all?
Oh gosh. So my son wasn't even 6 months old
Oh, yeah.
when I PCS there. So it was a little bit of a struggle. I'd say
Yeah.
it took me
Yeah.
about 3 months, but um, I was one of 2 females in my company. And that's all there was. There was 2 of us females in the company, and having a baby was not excuse to not be running. It was more of an excuse. It was
Yeah.
more of an excuse to run. And so by the time I had been there for a month, I was chuckling. I wasn't the last one coming through the line after the run, so I thought I
Good.
was good to go.
Yeah. Good.
So,
How is that? If you don't mind commenting on that, because I think we take it a lot for granted. But you just said you're one of 2 females in the company.
mhm,
Is
right.
there external pressure on you, or is the pressure mostly from within? So,
Um,
like, I don't want to fail. I'm not gonna need to be picked up. That kind of thing.
Well, in the beginning, it was challenging in that I don't believe that my commander at the time, my company commander, was ready
Yeah.
to have females. The young lady that was
Oh.
there before I was a brand new private out of AIT. She's very beautiful. But, what do a bunch of engineers do with a barely 18-year-old young lady? All the
Yeah.
other companies already had 1 or 2 females.
Okay.
And so they brought me in, and I took over as senior medic. They had a corporal there who was awesome when I got there.
Yeah.
And so we had to transition out of him being the senior medic to me. And my company commander wasn't really ready for it. So it was a little bit of a challenge.
Interesting.
But again, it was more of a prove myself. I had to prove that I was
Yeah.
able to do those ruck marches, that I was able to be a combat medic. And it took a little bit to get used to. It took a little bit for them to get used to me and me to get used to them. I used to remember
Sure.
there was an E7, his name was Sergeant Young, and he used to always look at me and tell me to remember what it meant to be a sapper. And I had no idea what a sapper was. And so finally I got mad and I was like, "You keep saying that to me. What does that mean? What does it mean to be a sapper? Does it mean to be a bully and be mean?" And yeah, I kind of lost my cool a little bit. And
Oh, you really?
yeah. Um, but he explained that they were the elite
Yeah.
engineers and
Yeah.
that they were, top of the line and this and that. And I don't get to come in there and pussyfoot around. I better
No?
come in there and do my job and know my job. And so those senior NCOs had expectations, but not only that, I was expected to be a lady, to not come in there running the streets. They had their expectation of what a senior female should act like. And so
Huh.
trying to show them that I could, 1, I had my own boundaries,
Yeah.
and 2, that I could pull my own weight was initially a challenge. But, once I garnered that respect and that they knew that I knew what I was doing, they treated me very well. We
You
got a new commander in, and he loved his medics, and that was good.
It changed the whole climate, right?
It
It changed
did.
everything, right? And that's, I remember back in going through it in the 80s, and I think it was all just like, hey, if you can do your job, then I don't care what you are. You know,
Right.
and that's kind of the way we wanted it to be. And I
Hmm.
think the people that I worked with, the females that I worked with, I think they had those expectations for themselves. And all these pundits and all these people who want to talk about all these different things, I think the military is pretty simple. It's like if you can pull your
Yeah.
own weight, then good, great.
Yep.
You know, I don't care what you do. So,
Yep. They were
um,
good to me. I mean, I learned so I learned so much from my
oh, that's
engineers.
great.
The boys taught me a lot, and I'm still in contact with quite a few of them.
Well, as soon as they saw that, you know, you're not going to ask them to carry your ruck, and they're
Right.
like, "Damn, she's tough enough," you know.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Okay, let me show you something." So
Right.
that's really cool. That'd be tough for a little bit, but that's really great. That's really great. And I asked that just because, you know, we're always just a bunch of guys talking about it, but we never really get the whole female perspective. There was a Marianne Smith I interviewed who was a Air Force B-52 mechanic.
Hmm.
And I think she was the first woman out on the, I think they call it out on the ramp, but she was the first female mechanic wherever she was at. And the stuff, you know, you got to put up with whether you're female or male, you still got to put up with your ration of
Yep.
dumb, you know, locker room talk. But if you show that you did, and she spoke of that same thing, you know, if you show you're competent, then that's all you need. Because even guys who don't show they're competent, they're going to get run out
Yep.
just as well. So,
Yep. Walk the line.
right. Well, that's good for you. What's a sapper? He probably could have said it a different way than just keep trying to slam sapper into you. So,
Right.
uh, the where you so you were an E5, the senior medic there,
Hmm.
right? You've taken over.
Yep.
And did you go to NTC? Did they take you out to NTC?
We did NTC. We did NTC a couple times. We went out there the first time as Op 4 for a deploying unit.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
Yes. And then we went out there for our own rotation. We ended up going to Iraq. We were sent to Iraq.
Oh, you were?
We were.
Huh.
And we
What year
spent
was that when they sent you?
2009.
Oh, that's around surge time, wasn't it?
Troop
Or right
surge.
after?
Yes. So
Yeah, yeah.
we get orders to Iraq route clearance package. And we got there around Valentine's Day.
Oh, wow.
And I remember after coming in from mission, we had a leaders meeting. And so although I was an E5, I still sat in the leaders meeting because I was the
You're
senior
senior
medic.
medic. Yeah, yeah.
And our company commander, he was then Captain Nix, basically briefed us that within 30 days that we would be boots on ground with 100% of our equipment, and we'd be running missions in Afghanistan due to the troop surge.
Wow.
So we were, if I'm not mistaken, if I am quoting this correctly, we were the first unit since the World War to hop from one theater of operation to the
Wow.
next and to continue mission.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that we weren't doing that the whole time. We just kept sending, oh, you're going to Iraq, you're going to Afghanistan.
Right.
You come back, we might send you somewhere else. But
Right.
they took your, you know, where were you at? Were you at a fob or what? in
My
Iraq?
company specifically, we were down in Taji, Iraq. And
Okay.
the battalion was kind of spread out.
Okay.
But my company was in Taji. I don't remember where everybody else was.
Well, and they took you, and then they moved you to where in Afghanistan?
Kandahar, Afghanistan.
Oh,
We based, we were running missions out of Kandahar for a while before my company at the time was moved to Lagman, and we would run missions out
Yeah.
of Lagman, and the other companies were placed elsewhere.
Wow. That's amazing.
Right.
This was
So
all within 2009?
2009. Yep.
How long
we
did you?
had-
So you only got what, a couple months there in Iraq before they took you and moved you to
Correct.
Afghanistan? Oh,
Correct. There
Jesus.
was the whole battalion deployed as a unit, and in that unit, there was a total of around 48 to 50 of us that were females. And
Oh
when
yeah,
we
yeah. Now we
when
got
we
a
got
whole nother dynamic now, right?
right, so around 550 to 600 soldiers, and 50 of us are females.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we get to Afghanistan, we're not living in choose like
Yeah.
in Iraq. We were living in Tent City. So it was a very, very interesting dynamic in that we were using shower tents, male tents, where the male shower tent wasn't that far from the female shower tent.
Yeah.
You know, our female tent for our unit was right in between the male tents. There wasn't too much drama. There wasn't too much drama. Every now and then there was the, oh, I'm lost. I thought I was in the male latrine kind of thing. And I'm sure that it happened going the opposite way where females said that they were, you know, so.
Some of the stories I've heard. Yeah, sure. But that's just troops being troops.
Right.
Dumb troops. Right. How did your battalion, wait, let me ask, how long did you stay in Afghanistan for?
We stayed in Afghanistan. So we finished out the year. We redeployed in February of 2010.
Oh, so you did a year then.
Mm-hmm.
Did a year, saw 2 countries. God.
Right.
How did your battalion do? I mean, did they?
So
how did they come back? Right.
Our battalion came back stressed. We did lose my company as a whole. 62nd didn't lose anybody.
Oh, thank God.
But the battalion as a whole lost quite a few.
Oh, really?
And we had several significantly injured. So definitely the ramp ceremonies played a big part. Yeah. And then when I wasn't out on mission, I was working with the forward support surgical team out of Fort Lewis. The 62nd Medical Company had a fast team in Logman, and they had a Special Forces doc. He was then Captain Dunderdale. And so if there was a mass cow or something like that, then I was working with them when I wasn't out the wire.
Holy cow.
I kept myself pretty busy.
Yeah. Good thing, right? I mean, that makes a year go by. The last thing you want is time on your hands where you just wait until the next sun up or whatever.
I had really, really competent medics that were the line medics and were running with their platoons. Yeah. But when they couldn't go out on mission or they were on R&R, or if there was a special mission that came up and there were plenty of those, then I was out the wire for that.
Golly. How are you doing? You know, how are you holding up? I mean, you got your daughter at home, right?
My son. Mm-hmm.
Or your son, sorry. And and he's what, less than 5, right?
I deployed. He was a year old. He was maybe 13 or 14 months when I deployed.
Wow. Well, you're and you got that on your mind. Mm-hmm. You're in the middle of it all during that critical time in the 2000s. Were you able to manage the stress? Did you go out and primal scream every once in a while and go, okay, I'm better. Hey, let's get back.
Well, the support elements, we kind of banded together. The supply, the mechanics. Yeah. The mechanics, actually, my birthday came up out there, and the mechanics actually had made a barbecue pit, and they used their Class 1 to kind of barbecue and throw me a birthday party.
Nice.
So I was really good friends with the mechanics.
Yeah.
So we made things work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Is there a guy you remember being the funniest guy out there? Every time I would go out, there's always one guy, and I'm like, that guy makes me laugh every time I'm around.
Well, I ended up marrying my husband.
Oh. Was he the funniest guy?
He wasn't the funniest guy, but he was the coolest guy.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So out of war, you came back with something special. That's great.
I did. We got married probably. So we came back in February, and I think we got married in September.
Wow. Geez, that's awesome. I mean, especially to be able to see what you guys saw.
Right.
And realize how special, life back here is.
He was the senior mechanic for our company, and I was so tiny. So you asked how I did out there. It was so hot, and I was already so tiny. I was maybe pushing 105 in Iraq. I gained weight while we were in Iraq, and I just thought I was the biggest, most solid ball of muscle there was. But after a few weeks in Afghanistan, that heat took a toll on me, walking everywhere. Doing it really took a toll on me. And I lost a bunch of weight. So I was down to 80 something pounds, and
Lighter than when you went into basic?
yeah,
Oh,
I was lighter than when, and I looked like it. Like I had the dark circles,
yeah.
all of that. And, he would make sure if he was on mission, the same mission I was so small that the 5-point seat belts, I could stand up and just get out of them if it was tightened down all the way. So he came one time, and we had stopped so that the engineers could use the restroom.
Yeah.
Or whatever to use nature. And and he was asking how I was doing, and I was like, I'm good as long as we don't get hit by anything. And he's like, what do you mean? And I stood up out of my seatbelt. He was like, oh my gosh. He was like, you're not lying. And I was like, no, oddly enough, I'm not lying. And so he came back. He was like, I think I can fix this for you. And he came back with bungee cords and some more stuff. And he basically rigged up my seatbelt so that it fit me the way that it was supposed to.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he taught me how to do it. So whenever I went out on mission, I didn't have to worry about being the debris that hurt someone if we got hit. So
well, you didn't want to fly out the window on a rollover either, right? So man, what a couple. You got a guy who can fix cars, and you got a woman who can fix bodies. I mean, that's a match made in heaven, boy. Well, congratulations on your marriage. But when you came when you came back in 2010, where did they send you? Did you go right back to
no
to Carson or no?
Oh yes, I went back to Fort Carson.
Okay.
They sent all of us through the new reintegration process. That was during the time where they were making everybody go. Nobody could pass go without going through behavioral health at that time. So we get back to Fort Carson, we do our reintegration, and then it's leave time.
Sure.
So got reintegrated with my son, and then in 2011, February of 2011, I was reporting to Fort Lewis.
Oh, really? Look at you. Really? Did you request to go back up there?
I did.
Okay. Well, that's smart. Yeah, that's smart.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let the randomizer take its chance. Yeah. Let me get back up there. Well, it probably helped you with your deployment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they gave you a first choice on where you wanted to go because of that deployment, but however it worked, right?
You're right.
How was it getting off the plane? Was it the movie reunion where was your family out there? Or?
No, my family, most of my family stayed in Washington State. So when I got off the plane, my then boyfriend, now husband, was the one that greeted me. He got back before I did.
He did. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good.
And so he greeted me off the plane and helped me get all my bags. And I watched everybody else. So I got to experience the rest of everybody else doing it. But mine was at home and at the airport when I got to go and pick up my son and meet my aunt at the airport.
Yeah. Oh man, what a whirlwind so far. We're only up to 2010.
So I was blessed in Afghanistan that I was also battlefield promoted to staff sergeant at the point of January. So we left in February. January, I was battlefield promoted to staff sergeant.
Now, what is it? What exactly does that mean? Because I left the Army. I left the Army in '98, so I don't know what exactly that term means. But does that mean whatever schools, whatever requirements are waived, and they're just going to give you the rank?
Yep. So I got the rank for kind of like Audie Murphy was battlefield promoted for whatever he did. So similar to that, there were a bunch of us that were throughout the deployment. We were battlefield promoted. I was one of a few battlefield promoted to staff sergeant.
But you got to keep it when you got back, right?
I got to keep it.
Yeah,
I did.
Because a lot of those they don't get to keep. So now it's Staff Sergeant.
That's right.
Krendra Harralson. God, that's walking a little bit more tall. And that's what within 12 years you're a staff?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Moving.
Yep.
That's pretty good. All right, so now you're back up at Fort Lewis. Who were you assigned to? Who were you assigned to up there?
When I got to Fort Lewis, I did not escape the engineers. I went from 4th Engineer Battalion to Triple Nickel, the Engineer Brigade, our actual parent unit. And I was the brigade senior medic for a while.
Yeah.
And I was there from 2011 to February of 2011 to April 2012. And in that time period, we ran a consolidated aid station and then set up the Soldier Center Medical Home on JBLM.
Wow.
Between the engineers and the artillery brigade.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever use that term, be a sapper, to somebody else? Just
no.
Oh, you should have. You should have thrown that out there. That would have been great. Quit your crying. Be a sapper.
Remember what it means to be a sapper.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you should have thrown that out at somebody. Because now look at you, you're a staff now, and you have engineer experience. So they're
right.
They're like, oh,
and I'm in a position commensurate for E8. So,
so what happened after 2012? You said you were there from 11.
I moved. So career progression. I needed hospital time, and so I moved over to Madigan Army Medical Center, and I was the NCOIC of the clinic, the primary care clinic.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. How many people?
The primary care clinic at the time, there was maybe 106 between green suiters and civilians. Wow. And then we had residents intermixed in there.
Wow. So you're almost like a first sergeant at that point, really?
Well, we still had a department NCO, which whenever it was PCS time or somebody had to be moved, I was the interim. So I spent quite a bit of time as the department NCOIC. So we went through when the government shut down, I was, NCOIC through switching out from bird teams to patient-centered medical homes, that kind of thing. I was the NCOIC through all of that.
Oh, God, that's a lot of moving pieces.
Yes, I had great officers. The two OICs that I had at the time, one was clinic OIC and one was department OIC. Yeah. Great female mentor as the department OIC. Just really made sure that I had the resources that I needed.
Golly, but that's a lot to track and keep. But that's good. I mean, it always helps when you get along with the people you work for. So
absolutely.
So how long did you do that position till?
I did that position. I was in that position for about 18 months before I moved over to medical operations. So I had my youngest son. Yeah. And when I came off of maternity leave, I went in for some interviews. I didn't know what I was interviewing for, but I ended up taking a position over in hospital operations, which
nice.
I was amazed. I loved hospital operations.
Really?
I still love systems and processes and all of that stuff. Yeah. And so that's where I learned the love that I had this passion for systems and processes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Most people hate systems and processes. So I'm glad you love it, because we need people who love it to make it work. What's that, 2014 then?
That is 2000. Yes.
Now, are all these PCA moves essentially?
Yes.
So you're extending your time at Fort Lewis, which also helps you to be closer to the family.
Right.
Right. Geez, how long did you do operations there for?
I did operations until December of 2015. I reported here to Fort Sam Houston, January of 2016.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I made E7 while I was the primary care clinic NCOIC.
At Fort Sam?
At Fort Lewis.
Oh, at Fort Lewis. You got senior NCO up there?
Yes.
Jeez. That's awesome. That's amazing. I mean, God, you had to be proud. I mean,
yes.
I mean, look at your time. I mean, you're hitting all the milestones. And
I prided myself on being a resource, not only to my subordinates, but my senior leaders. If they said that they couldn't get something, maybe they couldn't get a computer, fixed, or they couldn't get, Sergeant Major, do you mind if I help? Can I help you?
Savvy.
And somehow I would get the process done or taken care of. And so.
And now you become reliable. And now, you need to promote this person. Where'd you go to ANOC? Did you have to go to ANOC? I
was here at Fort Sam. Oh, so no, I started BNOC. I did BNOC first. I did phase 1 at Fort Carson.
Yeah.
I did phase 2 and 3 when I got to Fort Lewis,
Okay.
when I was with the engineers. And then I did ANOC. Did I have a phase 1? I did all of ANOC, or what do they call senior leader?
Oh, did they change the name now?
They changed the name. I did that here at Fort Sam. All my phases were here at Fort Sam.
Okay. All right. So you're stepping into Fort Sam as an E7.
Right.
Who'd you report? What was your assignment there at Sam Houston?
So originally I was supposed to go to the schoolhouse and be an instructor for the 68 Whiskeys, but I got swooped up by an NCO over at the Center for Pre-Hospital Medicine, where I was an instructor writer, but I helped to write the POI for 68 Whiskey, as well as the individual and group level tasks for the medical tasks.
Wow. Geez.
So the STP manuals, the medical STP manuals, yes, all of that stuff.
Man, that is, I can't believe who I'm sitting with. All these accomplishments, that's blowing me away. Oh, geez, I don't know what to say. That's
I worked with some pretty amazing people. My senior, the department NCO, he was great. The Center for Pre-Hospital Medicine, Mike Eldred, was there wasn't anything that he couldn't find the information to or had the information for.
Yeah.
And soon enough, I took over as the NCOIC for the Department of Combat Medic Education that year.
Oh, geez, that's amazing. That's awesome. So you're an E7.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what year did you say? I was trying to write it down, but it was so much.
In 2016.
2016.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, I got promoted to E7 in 2014. Because my youngest was born in 2013. I got promoted on my birthday of 2014 in April of 2014.
Well, that's a good way to remember it. Yeah. So 2017. So what was this your last assignment?
I had a few more positions before I medically retired, but Fort Sam Houston was my final assignment.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, geez. But where were you on years in service, though? You had to be close. But I know the guard time is funky.
It's calculated different. So at this time, from 2003 to 2016, somewhere between almost 15 years.
They didn't count that 18 months that you had on orders?
No.
Oh, they ripped
it did
you
not.
off.
It's not in my final calculation at all.
They ripped you off. You could have got it. You could have got that.
Right.
When did you retire then?
December 13th of 2018.
Oh man, right when you were in that sweet
17.
spot of a job. Yeah, too.
Yep.
Wow.
So
was that frustrating, right?
It was very frustrating because for a couple years I had been really sick and nobody could tell me what was wrong with me. And so then I had an emergency hysterectomy and I thought that was going to be the cure-all, and it wasn't.
Oh, no.
And so I'm still sick. Now I'm gaining weight. I had never been taped before in my life. And now I'm getting out of the hospital. And as soon as I get out of the hospital, within the week, they were like, you need to take a PT test and you need to do your height and weight. And I was like, I'm fat. Like, I've been in the hospital. I almost died. Like, what? And so I failed my tape test. I was over by 1%. And at this point, I'm devastated because I'm broken. I just gotten out of the hospital and now you want me to step on a scale. And so that was the start of becoming a little bit frustrated and bitter in my career.
The Army tends to do that when you fall off the pace lap. They tend to start doing that.
So
that sucks.
In 2017 is when they diagnosed me with fibromyalgia.
Oh, really?
Right. And so that was the answer to why I was in pain, but had no real other symptoms. Right? And I had already done the behavioral health thing. And so I knew that I wasn't losing my mind. definitely with the seeing different providers, really thought for a minute that I was like, that I was being gaslit. Like, you guys know that there's something really wrong with me, right? Like, it's
Yeah,
not
you're just not
mental.
telling me. I mean, you
Right.
guys are smart. You can figure this out. I
Right.
had some guys who had come back from Desert Storm with that, what they call. I can't even remember what they called it because they couldn't figure it out either.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys live for years. Like, well, they just tell me it's some syndrome, but they don't know
Yep.
what it
Desert
is.
Storm syndrome, or
Yeah, I can't.
yep,
It was Gulf War
Gulf War
syndrome. That's what it
syndrome. There
was.
you go. Yep. That's
And
what originally they told me too.
did they really?
Mm-hmm.
Ah. No offense to them. I mean, they're trying to figure it out. It's not like they can't figure it out. But now that we know, oh yeah, there was uranium, oil, silicate in the air. There's all these horrible chemicals that were around,
Right.
especially the guys who
All the stuff we
deployed.
burned.
Yeah, yeah. And I saw a study lately that they were like, it was more than just the stuff I mean, there were people breathing. There was silicate in the air,
In the area.
Yeah, and it was just like, oh yeah, that caused some problems too. So, yeah, frustrating, obviously for you.
Mm-hmm.
But at least now, you got kind of a definition of it. I don't know if that makes it any easier or not,
Right.
but, well, that's that for such a hard charger that had to be fairly devastating, and
It
I
was.
can see it. Yeah, I can see
It
it.
went, I started going into a depression, and
Mm.
for somebody who taught suicide prevention, I was an assist
Oh, you
trainer.
did. Wow,
You go
wow.
through the first sergeant and commander pre-command course, you get all this information, and it wasn't something that I recognized in myself at all.
God, isn't that weird? Yeah, that's
It
wild.
was, yeah. When I found out that I was going to be med boarded, at first I was like, no, no, no,
Yeah,
there's got to be something else that I can still do, especially since I was so close to the end of my career.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they were just like, we're sorry. You have all these medical issues, the fibromyalgia, the migraines,
Oh,
because I had head injuries, and they were just like, this is it. This is your time. And so I felt like a loser for not fighting it. I absolutely didn't fight it. I was just sad about it. Like, man, the Army broke me and now they're kicking me out. And
right,
I just kind
right.
of sunk into all of that. I didn't fight back and say, hey, you know what? There's hospital positions, there's clinic positions, there's other instructor positions that I can do. I didn't do any of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, but you don't know to do it. And when you get alone in that mind of yours, I mean, not of yours, mine too.
Right.
God, it's tough to get out of that. It's tough to get out
Mhm.
of that. How are you? How long did it take you to where, hey, okay, maybe I've squared with it, maybe you've never squared with it. I don't know.
So
Where are you on that process?
when I got out, my grandmother was passing away. So during my
Oh,
transition, we were
jeez, yeah,
doing Soldier for Life. My grandmother passes away,
yeah.
and I go home to help take care of her during end of life, during transition.
Hmm.
So now the strongest woman I know has passed away. The end of my career, I'm at the end of my career. And oh, by the way, in case nobody cared, this is my thought process. I didn't make it to be the first female sergeant major of the Army. So
Right,
in my
right.
head, I had failed. Yes, I had all these other accolades. I was inducted into the Audie Murphy Club. I was battlefield
Wow.
promoted. I was all of these things, but in my mind, those accolades were not registering.
Yeah, they don't weigh as much, you
Right.
know?
I'm telling you, there was something about me being the first female sergeant major of the Army that gave me life and kept me going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now I've retired, and I think that it took about 2.5 years of trying different things.
Oh yeah.
I did. My husband came home one day and he was just like, "You're a mess."
Oh, jeez. Well, nobody can talk to you like your spouse. And nobody can
Right.
say that like your spouse, right?
He was like, try volunteering. He was like, San Antonio has all these women's organizations. There's the Pink Berets, and there's the Women Veterans of San
Yeah,
Antonio.
it's
And he
huge.
brought
Yeah.
home all these flyers.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, he just wants me to get out of this house. That's not fun. So one day he saw that there was an independent a wine club. and they offered people to come on as independent sommeliers, wine guides.
Wow.
And so I went and tried that, and I loved it. It got me back out into the people, talking to
Yeah.
people. I love wine. Oh boy, do
Oh,
I!
you do?
I
Oh,
do.
okay. Well, that helps.
And so I would always, before I knew that this existed and that I could do this, I
Yeah.
would always, pair my husband. I would make
Oh, you did?
I'd make bases for the ribs or
Oh,
the
yeah.
steaks
Yeah.
with whiskey, and I would do this. I'd make vinaigrettes out of wine and different things like that. So I thought I was already cool, but this made me cooler. Um,
Hell yeah.
so I would do independent wine tastings. I would do wine tastings in people's homes, and I met some pretty awesome people. Army dental techs. I
Oh,
met
wow. Yeah.
vehicle engineers, all kinds of people doing wine tastings, and I would do themed wine tastings, whether it was for individual couples for Valentine's Day,
Yeah.
birthday themed ones. I played games and did everything. So that was fun for a while. And then I found one of my prior colleagues, her and I were talking one day, and I was telling her about being retired. And she was like, "You're out already? We never thought you'd get out." And I was like, "I know, me too." Um, so she
Sure.
asked me if I was interested in competing for the Miss Veteran America. And I was like, "What's that?" So
Yeah.
she ran it down for me, and I competed. And in this competition, it's geared, it's a pageant, but they don't like to say the P word in that competition
Oh,
because it's geared toward military females. You have to
okay.
be a veteran in order to compete.
Yeah.
And Final Salute Inc. is the nonprofit that kind of owns Miss Veteran America.
Oh, they are. Okay. All
Right.
right.
So Major retired Jazz Booth, who experienced some challenges of homelessness when she got out of the military, created this
Wow.
nonprofit and has done amazing work around the United States with helping change the definition of what homelessness means for a veteran, for the purposes of benefits, that kind of stuff. And now she has this nonprofit, and the capstone, the annual capstone is the competition. And so in the meantime, we
Oh,
advocate for homeless women veterans and their children because they're the fastest growing homeless population in the United States right now.
never knew. All right. So
Right.
you can tell there's a need because I never knew that fact that you just threw out there. So
70% of homeless women veterans are homeless with their children.
wow, that's incredible.
Right.
That's incredible. So, was it at that point where the veil lifted for you and you're like,
Yes.
oh, I'm back in it again, right?
Yes. I had an additional purpose on top of raising my kids and getting them to and from school.
Yeah.
I had a purpose, and it was to help my sisters in the community. And I was just like, there was so much passion behind it, like raising money, doing talks, going to different VFWs and the VAs, and meeting with, Representative Carrie Isaacs to talk about homeless women veterans and what we can do to get ahead of it and become proactive instead of reactive. And it revived me. I found a different type of camaraderie that I was longing for since I had been out of the military. I found my tribe.
That's the best way to put it. Final Salute is like you said, that's the nonprofit, but that also governs the Mrs. Texas.
No, Mrs. Veteran America. That's Miss Texas. It's different. That's a whole nother.
Oh, it is. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, do you want to tell us about Mrs. Texas?
Yes. So with Miss Veteran America, I placed in the top 10, which I understand is kind of a big deal. So at the time I was like, I didn't win. I didn't win, but it was fun. And so after the competition, another opportunity came to me to receive an appointed title and compete for Mrs. United States Service Ambassador, Mrs. USA.
Wow.
And so I took on the challenge, and I went through the process to become Mrs. Texas USA, and I was appointed. And so now we have I still advocate, my platform is still dedicated to homeless women veterans,
Of course.
mental health, and education. I will say that the mental health journey of retiring, going from diagnosis to medical retirement, really took a toll on me. And, being homeless, not that I was, but it can really, it's a contributing factor. Mental health is a contributing factor to homeless women veterans. And so I kept that as my platform. But now we have a nonprofit of choice for worldwide pageants, which is Love Without Boundaries. And this is an organization that aims to provide food security, housing security, and educational resources to orphan children around the world, as well as providing much needed medical care. Some children are born with cleft palates or hearing issues, visual issues, all kinds of health issues that our children can be born with.
Sure.
And Love Without Boundaries provides fundraising and resources in order for them to get the care that they need.
And it's nationwide?
It's nationwide. And so the cool thing with that is although it's not Final Salute Inc., it is a way to help propel me forward into the top 10, into the Mrs. USA pageant. So the more money that I raise for Love Without Boundaries kind of gives me an upper edge.
Okay. Wow. Jeez. I mean, to have that, to get out of the military there, under those conditions, and then to go through those struggles, and now to see you, geez, you're like a 17-year-old again.
Yeah.
I mean, you're all excited. You're leaning forward. That whole speech is like, was that the first time you ever said that? Because that came out perfect. That was perfect. So, wow, what a career! What an ongoing future you have for all these other organizations. So what's the next big event?
So the next big event is competing for Mrs. USA August 1st through 3rd in Omaha, Nebraska at the Scottish Rite Theater. So if anybody watching, listening is going to be in that area or is already in that area, tickets are about $34.
Okay.
And come root Mrs. Texas on.
And we can get you there. Or what? You're going to be there anyway, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But through Love Without Boundaries,
you can propel me forward into the top 10 by doing some donations.
So before I forget, because I probably will, what's the websites that we can find either you or Final Salute or Love Without Boundaries at?
On my Facebook and Instagram, Mrs. Texas USA 2024. You'll find me in one of my snazzy cowboy hats.
That's true. I did see that. Yeah.
You can, there are links to the fundraiser, and there is also links to Final Salute Inc. They're pinned to my page, so it should be the first things you see.
And that's what I saw. That's when I messaged you, and that's you start clicking on those links and they take you right through.
Yeah.
But without your explanation, it makes a lot more sense now. So, geez, so now that you're in Texas, don't tell me you've adopted all the Texas sports teams, or your husband has he?
No.
Good.
I cheer them on as the delegate of the state for the state.
That's right.
I do cheer them on, but my home team is Seattle.
Okay. I used to hate Seattle a lot more when before they realigned all the divisions, because I'm a Broncos guy. So
my word!
Yeah, we used to hate you, but you beat us in the Super Bowl. So what can I say? We can't say anything. And we took Russell Wilson off.
Yeah, and you took Russell, but you guys gave him up. So
yeah, we did.
Off he goes. Steeler Nation.
That's crazy. I don't know what the Steelers are going to do. I don't know what their plan is. So
right.
Did we get it all? I mean, I could do 3 more episodes with you, because I hate to short shrift, your deployment. Really, any of it. I mean, I know you got stories, and I can see when you open up, but you went back into pageant mode real quick there, and I was like, come on, tell us a real thing, tell us a real story. What do you tell your children about your military time?
That I would not change it for anything in the world. And that as much as I love them, because, there was a time where I considered law enforcement when I got out.
Oh, yeah.
And my middle
Yeah.
son, he had some tears and he was like, "Didn't you just finish doing something dangerous, Mom?
Well,
Why do you want to do that again?" And so he was
Yeah.
pretty upset about it. And so
That's a
what I
smart
would,
kid.
yeah, right.
That's an
I,
aware kid. Yeah.
he is
Yeah.
very. So I would say that if I had the opportunity to do it again, I absolutely 100% hands down would do it. It's afforded me so much experience and so much knowledge.
Yeah.
What I do, like I graduate next month from St. Mary's School of Law with a Master of
Oh.
Jurisprudence and a dual concentration of healthcare compliance law and employment and human resources law. And if I hadn't had that military service, I would not be prepared for what I'm getting myself into. I just passed my Officer of Healthcare Compliance. Officer of Healthcare Compliance certification.
Yeah.
So, I'm just looking for after the pageants and when I settle down and start working, that's where I'll be at.
I don't know. You may never settle down and start working. I can't ever see you settling down.
Right.
Yeah, you're just a burst of energy, and I can't picture. And maybe that's a testament to how far down you were. Those couple of years that you were really down, and maybe that insight was given to you so you can go help all these other women.
Right. I hope so.
You've done so much. You've been so successful. So here's how I bring us all together, right?
Okay.
And if it doesn't work, I'll edit it out. Don't worry.
Okay.
But I always ask. I tend to always ask because your achievements are admirable. I mean,
thank you.
I'm genuinely in awe of what you've done. But do you remember the time of your worst ass chewing?
Oh my word. I would say
and I don't mean to make that like a pageant question. I'm just saying, because getting our ass chewed, that also connects every military person together.
So, of course, I told you that I was unintentionally the class clown.
Right.
So
but you didn't elaborate. Yeah,
I got myself in trouble at basic training. I've always kind of walked a fine line. But there is a SAR major, and I don't know that I was as fearful of him as some of my coworkers. SAR Major Jeffers was the battalion SAR major when I was out in Wiesbaden. And everybody would kind of like scatter like ants every time he came around. Where this particular time, we are preparing for the range and we're inside the hangar doing washer drills. Okay. So now, mind you, my weapons experience is very limited because I was National Guard. And so here I am, this tiny little pea pot of a person in my uniform. And
so when my wife listens to this, because she'll go, "What's a washer drill?" That's just to practice your trigger pull, right?
Right. Okay. Exactly. And so I couldn't keep my eye closed. So I had this eye patch over my eye.
Where did you get an eye patch?
From the aid bag.
Well, you're a medic. Yeah, that's right. I forgot.
So this was my platoon sergeant's way of helping me keep my eyes covered so that I could still fire.
All right.
And I get up. I don't remember if I have to use the restroom or what's going on, but SAR Major comes quietly scurrying through the hangar. And he says, "Come here, killer." And I'm like, "Oh, snap." And I look around and it's just me and him. And I'm like trying to like backtrack to get back to the area where we were doing washer drills so somebody can come and rescue me. And he says, "Come here." And I was like, "Roger, SAR Major." So I go bebopping over there. You just have to see me as this young soldier. There's not a care in the world. There's
100 pounds. Yeah. There you go.
He goes, "What's on your face?" And I said, "An eye patch, SAR Major." "What do you need an eye patch for?" And I said, "I'm having a hard time keeping my eye closed to shoot." So this was the answer. He said, "So you mean to tell me that when you're on the battlefield and there's snipers out there, you're going to take time out to put on an eye patch?" And he caught me so off guard. And I was kind of like, "That's kind of a silly question, SAR Major. No, I'm going to put this motherfucker on 3-round burst and I'm just going to spray."
Damn.
Sergeant Major stands up straight and he looks at me and his face gets a little bit red. He said, "Who's your platoon sergeant?" "Oh, I'll take you to him. Let's go, Sergeant."
Yeah.
So he would get squared away about not using an eye patch for training drills because we train as we fight and so on and so forth. And then that led into we had this PFC that had a broken femur or something like that, or not a femur, a broken tibia. And he was wearing a cast, and Sergeant Major is asking me, "So why is he wearing this cast? What is?" And I didn't know. He wasn't in my platoon.
Yeah.
So this chewing took a whole new level because I got in trouble for not knowing why my battle buddy was wearing this cast and how he got into
he just
this
rolled
cast.
from the eye patch to the next thing?
Yes. He took it right on.
Man,
But I was still smiling. I took it like a champ.
He was going to break you down one way or another. He was going to try to get you.
He puts his pants on the same way I do, just different junk. That's all.
Well, that doesn't sound like much of an ass to him, but that's a great story. That's really a great story. When did he relent? Did he ever let up on you?
Oh, yeah. My platoon sergeant at the time was kind of jerky. And he put his foot in his mouth, and that was the end of that for me.
Oh, so focus is off of you.
Yeah. Thank goodness. I went back to wearing my eye patch.
Oh, man, that's great. That's good. That's a perfect end. That's a really perfect end. Army Sergeant First Class Krendra Harralson. God, it's been an honor to get your story, man. It's been a privilege to talk with you. Thanks for sharing your career with me, and good luck at Mrs. USA. Is it Mrs. USA or Mrs. Veteran?
Mrs. Veteran America was the last one. This one is Mrs. USA. I'm the Texas delegate representing the Lone Star State for the Mrs. USA pageant.
And all you guys watching and listening, go out to Level Out Boundaries, and let's get Sergeant First Class Harralson up into the top 10. So,
amen.
Thank you, Krendra. Thanks for talking with me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
On behalf of Sergeant First Class Harralson, I'd like to thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please leave a like and a comment and share the podcast with someone else. And as always, make sure to download the next episode for more service origin stories. So until next time, on your feet,